The termination slip felt like ice in my hand. I stared at it, vision blurring, heart pounding so hard I thought the entire break room could hear it. Fired. The word stamped in bold black letters across cheap white paper. My manager wouldn't even look me in the eye when he handed it over. Hey everyone. Welcome back to another story. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining us today. And to my returning viewers, you already know we bring the most emotional, jaw-dropping stories every single time. Before we dive into this unbelievable journey, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. 24 years old. Nursing degree gathering dust on my shelf. Rent 3 days overdue. And now, unemployed because I committed the unforgivable sin of feeding a hungry child. Let me take you back 6 hours. Harbor Steakhouse wasn't fancy by billionaire standards, but it was the kind of place where people whispered when certain customers walked in. Table 12 was always reserved. Always. The kind of reservation that came with men in dark suits standing by the door and waiters who suddenly found reasons to serve other sections. That table belonged to Luca Moretti. Even if you didn't know the name, you knew the weight it carried. Shipping magnate. Philanthropist. And if you believe the rumors, the kind of man whose handshake could make your problems disappear or make you disappear with them. But none of that mattered when I saw his son. Matteo was 8 years old, small for his age, with dark curls that fell across his forehead and eyes that held more loneliness than any child should carry. Cerebral palsy left his limbs stiff and his movements uncertain. His caregiver, an older woman who looked more terrified than nurturing, sat rigid beside him while his father conducted business on the phone. The boy was struggling with his soup. Badly. His spoon kept slipping, broth splashing onto the white tablecloth. I watched his little face crumple with frustration, watched him glance at his father who was too deep in conversation to notice, watched the caregiver stare straight ahead like a statue. Something in my chest cracked. I walked over before my brain could warn me not to. Knelt down beside Matteo's chair. His wide eyes met mine, surprised, a little scared. "Here comes the airplane," I whispered, guiding the spoon gently toward his mouth. He hesitated, then opened up. I made a soft whooshing sound. His lips twitched. Then came the sound that changed everything. Laughter. Pure, delighted, childish laughter that rang through the entire dining section like church bells. The restaurant went silent. Every head turned. Luca Moretti's phone call stopped mid-sentence. I felt his gaze on me, heavy as a guillotine blade, but I didn't look up. I just kept feeding Matteo, kept making him giggle, kept pretending my hands weren't shaking. When I finally stood and walked away, I swore I saw something flicker across Luca's face. Not anger. Something else. Something almost human. That was 4 o'clock. By 8, I was fired. Now it was past midnight, and I was sitting in my studio apartment that smelled like mildew and broken dreams, staring at that termination slip and wondering how caring too much had become my biggest crime. If you're feeling this right now, if you've ever been punished for doing the right thing, drop a comment below. Let me know I'm not alone in this. And please, hit that like button because this story is just getting started. I didn't sleep. How could I? Morning came cold and gray, sleet tapping against my window like tiny accusations. I made instant coffee with shaking hands and sat at my thrift store table, trying to figure out which bill to pay first and which ones could wait another week. That's when I heard it. A knock at my door. Not the usual knock of a neighbor or delivery guy. This was firm. Controlled. The kind of knock that doesn't expect to be ignored. My stomach dropped. I moved to the door, pulse hammering in my throat, and looked through the peephole. 2 men in black coats stood in my hallway, hands clasped in front of them, faces unreadable. The kind of men who don't take no for an answer. Every instinct screamed at me to pretend I wasn't home. But somehow I knew, deep in my bones, that running wasn't an option anymore. Not from this. Not from him. I opened the door. "Miss Jenna Reed," the taller one said. It wasn't a question. "Mr. Moretti requests your presence. It's about his son." The world tilted. What do you think happened next? Drop your predictions in the comments because I promise you, Nothing could have prepared me for what came after I stepped into that black sedan. Make sure you're subscribed because the next part will leave you speechless. The leather seat felt wrong against my jeans. Everything about that car felt wrong. The tinted windows turned the familiar streets of my neighborhood into shadows. The driver said nothing. The man beside me stared straight ahead like I was cargo, not a person. I should have been terrified. Maybe I was. But exhaustion has a way of numbing fear. My mind drifted back, the way it always did when things got bad. Back to 3 years ago when my mother first got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She fought for 14. I had been in my final year of nursing school, top of my class, internship offers from 2 hospitals. A future that felt solid, real. Then Mom's insurance denied her treatment. The appeals process alone took 3 months we didn't have. So I made a choice. Dropped out. Took care of her myself. Learned to manage pain medication, change IVs, hold her hand through the kind of suffering that breaks you from the inside out. I watched the strongest woman I ever knew waste away to nothing. Watched her apologize for ruining my life with her dying breaths. She didn't ruin my life. Cancer did. The system did. But by the time she passed, my scholarship was gone, my internship offers had moved on, and I was 24 with a half-finished degree and medical debt that would follow me to my own grave. Harbor Steakhouse was supposed to be temporary, just until I saved enough to finish school. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent when you're barely surviving. I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to have people look through you like you don't matter. That's why I saw Matteo when everyone else looked away. The car turned onto a private road I didn't recognize. Trees gave way to iron gates that opened without anyone pressing a button. My breath caught. The Moretti estate wasn't just a house. It was a fortress disguised as a palace. 3 stories of stone and glass, fountains that probably cost more than my entire apartment building, gardens so perfect they looked painted. We stopped at the front entrance. The door opened before I could reach for the handle. Miss Reed, a woman in a crisp gray suit, said, "Mr. Moretti is waiting in the East Wing. Please follow me." I stepped out into a world I had no business entering. The air even smelled expensive. My sneakers squeaked against marble floors that reflected the chandelier overhead like a frozen waterfall of light. Somewhere in this mansion was a man who could end me with a phone call. And I was about to find out why he brought me here. If your heart is racing right now, mine was about to explode. Drop a like if you're hooked because what I saw when those double doors opened changed everything I thought I knew about Luca Moretti. The double doors opened into a study that could swallow my apartment twice over. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A desk carved from dark wood. Windows overlooking grounds that seemed to stretch forever. And there, standing by the window with his back to me, was Luca Moretti. He turned slowly. No sudden movements. Everything calculated. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with a kind of face that would be handsome if it wasn't so carefully empty. Dark hair. Darker eyes. A suit that probably cost more than my car. But it was the exhaustion around those eyes that caught me off guard. The kind of bone-deep weariness that comes from carrying weight no one else can see. "Mr. Moretti," I started, voice smaller than I wanted. "I don't understand why I'm here. If I offended you yesterday, I'm sorry. I just thought. My son hasn't eaten since you were fired." The words cut through my rambling. I stopped. Stared. He hasn't spoken either. His doctor came this morning. Matteo refused to let anyone touch him. He kept asking for the airplane lady. Something twisted in my chest. Luca moved closer, hands in his pockets, studying me like I was a problem he couldn't solve with money or threats. Matteo was born premature. Complications during delivery. His mother died 3 hours after he took his first breath. The cerebral palsy came later. Then the heart condition. He's had 11 surgeries before his 8th birthday. His voice never changed, but I heard it anyway. The grief underneath. The guilt. I hire the best doctors. The best therapists. The best caregivers money can buy. And in 5 minutes, you gave him something none of them could. What? I whispered. Joy. He paused. I need you to work for my son. Full-time. Name your price. The room spun. This couldn't be real. Men like Luca Moretti didn't beg. Didn't need people like me. But standing there in that enormous study, I realized something that should have terrified me. He wasn't offering me a job. He was offering me the key to a prison I didn't understand yet. A golden cage where nothing was as simple as it seemed. And the worst part? I was already considering it. What would you do? Take the offer or run while you still can? Comment below because what I said next set off a chain of events that would bring down an empire. Make sure you're subscribed because this is where everything changes. I heard myself ask the question before my brain approved it. What happened to his other caregivers? Luca's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or warning. They followed instructions perfectly. Kept him safe. Federal medicated. He pulled a folder from his desk and set it down between us. They treated him like a medical chart instead of a child. You treated him like he mattered. The folder sat there like a test I hadn't studied for. Inside were papers. Contracts, probably. The kind that would tie me to this world in ways I couldn't imagine. My mouth went dry. Mr. Moretti, I appreciate the offer, but I don't know anything about your life or your business. I'm just a waitress with half a nursing degree who made a kid laugh. That doesn't qualify me to. You loved someone who was dying. You cared for them anyway. The air left my lungs. How did he know about my mother? What else did he know? Luca stepped closer, and I fought the urge to back away. His voice dropped lower. Matteo is dying. Slowly. His heart isn't strong enough for another surgery, but without it, he has maybe 5 years. Every doctor says the same thing. Keep him comfortable. Keep him stable. No stress. No excitement. No life. His jaw tightened. The first crack in his armor. You gave him life yesterday. Even if it was just 5 minutes. I need someone who sees my son instead of my name. Can you do that? The honest answer was I didn't know. This man controlled an empire built on fear. His enemies probably had enemies. And I was supposed to walk into the center of that storm and take care of a little boy who deserved nothing but peace? But then I thought about Matteo's laugh. That pure, surprised sound of a kid who forgot he was allowed to be happy. I'll try, I heard myself say. But I have conditions. Luca raised an eyebrow. The first hint of surprise. Name them. I see Matteo as a patient and a person. Not a secret to be locked away. He needs more than safety. He needs normal. Parks. Other kids. Sunshine. Life. The silence stretched so long I thought I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Then Luca did something I didn't expect. He almost smiled. You start today. The folder opened. Papers slid across the desk. Salary numbers that made my knees weak. Benefits. Housing on the estate. Access to the medical wing. And at the bottom, a single line that should have sent me running. All matters regarding Matteo Moretti are strictly confidential. Breach of contract will result in immediate termination and legal action. Legal action. The pretty words for what happened to people who betrayed the Moretti family. I signed anyway. Maybe I was desperate. Maybe I was stupid. Maybe something in me recognized that little boy's loneliness because I'd felt it myself. Luca made a single phone call. 2 minutes later, the woman in the gray suit returned. Take Miss Reed to the nursery wing. Inform the staff she has full authority over Matteo's daily care. Just like that, my life changed. The nursery wing was on the 3rd floor, down hallways lined with paintings worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. We passed men in suits who watched me like I was a threat. Cameras in every corner. Doors that locked with keypads. This wasn't a home. It was a bunker. Then we reached Matteo's room, and everything else disappeared. He sat in a wheelchair by the window, small and still, staring out at gardens he probably never got to play in. His caregiver from yesterday stood nearby, relief flooding her face when she saw me. Matteo turned. His eyes went wide. Airplane lady, he whispered. My heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same moment. I crossed the room, knelt down so we were eye level, and smiled. Hi, Matteo. My name is Jenna. How about we go on an adventure today? For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw something real. Hope. It flickered across his small face like sunrise. Where? His voice was soft, unsure, like he'd been disappointed too many times to trust easily. I glanced at the caregiver, then at the door, then back at this little boy who'd been kept in a cage his whole life. Anywhere you want. His smile could have lit up the whole mansion. But I didn't know then what I was really signing up for. That keeping Matteo safe meant making enemies I couldn't see. That giving him life meant stepping into the crosshairs of people who wanted him to stay small and quiet and forgotten. And I definitely didn't know that someone in that house was already planning to destroy me for getting too close. Are you feeling the danger coming? Because I should have. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me if you think Jenna made the right choice. Subscribe because what happens next will make you question everything. 3 weeks changed everything. Matteo laughed now. Real laughs that echoed through hallways that had been silent too long. We painted together in the sunroom, his small hands covered in colors he mixed himself. Blues and yellows and greens that didn't match but didn't need to. We read books where dragons were friendly and heroes could be small. We sat in the garden while he told me stories about clouds shaped like animals only he could see. His physical therapist said his mobility improved. His doctor said his appetite was better. His night nurse said he actually slept through the night. But the best part? Matteo started asking questions. About everything. Why is the sky blue? Where do birds go at night? Why doesn't Dad smile? That last one I didn't have an answer for. Because Luca Moretti was always watching. I'd catch glimpses of him standing in doorways, listening to Matteo's laughter. Sitting in his study with the door cracked while we played games in the next room. Once I found him outside the sunroom at dawn, just staring at the paintings Matteo had taped to the windows. He never interrupted. Never joined us. Just observed from the shadows like he didn't know how to step into the light. It broke my heart in ways I didn't expect. Then came the dinner invitation. Not a request. An actual invitation, handwritten on expensive paper, slipped under my door. Please join Matteo and me for dinner tonight. 7 o'clock. East dining room. I almost said no. Meals with Matteo were casual, messy, full of stories and spilled juice. Dinner with Luca Moretti sounded like a test I hadn't prepared for. But Matteo's face when I told him lit up like Christmas morning. You're eating with us? Really? He grabbed my hand with both of his. Dad never eats with anyone. Just me. And now you. So at 7 o'clock I found myself in a dining room that could seat 20, with a table set for 3. Matteo sat between us in his adaptive chair, practically vibrating with excitement. Luca arrived exactly on time, still in his suit, looking uncomfortable in his own house. Miss Reed. Jenna, I corrected quietly. Matteo calls me Jenna. Something shifted in his expression. Jenna. The way he said my name shouldn't have affected me. But it did. Dinner started awkward. Luca asked polite questions. I gave polite answers. Matteo watched us like we were the most interesting show he'd ever seen. Then Matteo knocked over his water reaching for the bread basket. The glass tipped, water flooding across the pristine white tablecloth straight toward Luca's lap. I lunged for a napkin. Luca jerked back. And Matteo froze, terror washing over his small face. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. My chest tightened. How many times had this happened before? How many times had he been punished for being a child? But Luca didn't yell. Didn't snap his fingers for staff to clean it. He just looked at his son, then at the spreading water, then did something I never expected. He laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A real laugh, surprised and genuine, as he grabbed his own napkin and tossed it over the puddle. Good thing water isn't expensive. His eyes met Matteo's. Unlike everything else in this house. Matteo's mouth fell open. Then he giggled. Then I started laughing too, and suddenly the ridiculous formality shattered into something almost normal. We ate with wet napkins piled between us. Luca asked Matteo about his paintings. Matteo demonstrated his new cloud identification system using dinner rolls. I told stories about my childhood disasters that made Matteo snort milk through his nose. And Luca smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his entire face, erased years of hardness, made him look almost human. Our eyes met across the table while Matteo chattered about wanting a dog. Something passed between us. Something dangerous and electric and completely inappropriate. I looked away first, heart pounding. After dinner, Luca walked us back to the nursery wing. Matteo held both our hands, swinging between us, talking non-stop about doing this every night. At the door, Luca knelt down to his son's level. I had a good time tonight. Matteo threw his arms around his father's neck. Me too, Dad. Best night ever. Luca's eyes closed. His arms came up slowly, carefully, like he'd forgotten how to hold his own child. When he finally looked up, his gaze found mine over Matteo's shoulder. Thank you, he mouthed. I nodded, not trusting my voice. But down the hallway, hidden in the shadows between cameras, someone watched with eyes full of poison. Someone who saw that dinner as a threat. Someone who'd been with the Moretti family long before I arrived and planned to be there long after I was gone. And they just decided I was a problem that needed solving. Did you catch that shift? From joy to danger in a heartbeat? Comment below what you think is coming because the storm is about to hit. Smash that subscribe button because the next part will have you on the edge of your seat. Hashtag Chapter 5. The note appeared under my door 3 days later. You don't belong here. Leave while you still can. No signature. Block letters written in black ink on plain paper. My hands shook holding it. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe staff who resented the new girl with special privileges. Maybe nothing. But my gut said otherwise. I started noticing things. Conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Eyes that tracked my movements through the estate. Doors that were suddenly locked when they'd been open before. Small things. Easy to dismiss alone. Impossible to ignore together. Then the accident started. A loose stone on the garden path that sent me sprawling, barely catching myself before my head hit the fountain edge. Matteo's medication delivered in the wrong dosage, caught only because I triple-checked everything. The brake lines on the car assigned to take us to Matteo's therapy appointment, discovered by the driver minutes before we would have left. I went to Luca after the car incident. Found him in his study with 3 men I'd never seen before. They went silent when I entered. One of them, silver-haired with cold eyes and an expensive watch, looked me up and down like I was dirt on his shoe. Miss Reed, Luca said, voice carefully neutral. I'm in a meeting. Someone tampered with the car. The one Matteo uses. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Luca stood slowly. Explain. I told him everything. The notes. The accidents. The feeling of being watched. The 3 men exchanged glances I couldn't read. The silver-haired man spoke first. Mr. Moretti, perhaps Miss Reed is overwhelmed by her new position. Stress can make people imagine threats that don't exist. His smile never reached his eyes. Estate security is my responsibility. I assure you, no one here would harm a hair on that boy's head. Something about the way he said that boy made my skin crawl. Luca's jaw tightened. Vincent, check the car personally. Report back in an hour. Vincent. I filed the name away. The way he looked at me before leaving told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't my imagination. And he wasn't trying to hide his involvement anymore. After they left, Luca poured himself a drink. Didn't offer me one. Vincent Calabrese has been with my family for 20 years. He was my father's right hand. His voice was carefully controlled. Making accusations against him is dangerous. I'm not making accusations. I'm telling you what's happening. He downed the drink in one swallow. His world and mine, Jenna. They don't mix. People in my organization see you as a weakness. An outsider who's gotten too close, too fast. Then fire me. My voice cracked. Send me away if it keeps Matteo safe. Luca crossed the room so fast I gasped. He stopped inches away, eyes blazing with something between anger and desperation. No. The word came out rough. You're the only thing keeping him alive. Not the medicine. Not the doctors. You. He ran a hand through his hair. Composure finally cracking. But I can't protect you if you become a target. And I can't let you go because my son will break without you. The air between us felt electric. Dangerous. What do? I whispered. His hand came up, almost touching my face before he caught himself. Stay close to Matteo. Trust no one. Not the staff. Not my men. No one. What about you? The question hung there. His eyes searched mine, and I saw it clearly now. This wasn't just about Matteo anymore. Whatever was happening between us terrified him more than any enemy. The door burst open. One of Luca's guards, out of breath. Boss, we got a problem. Someone just breached the north perimeter. Armed. Heading toward the main house. Luca's entire demeanor changed. Get her to the safe room. Now. What about Matteo? He's already there. Move. Hands grabbed my arms, pulling me toward the door. I looked back. Luca was already on his phone, barking orders, transformed into someone I didn't recognize. The dangerous man the world feared. And I realized with cold clarity that I'd fallen into something much bigger than a job. Much darker than I understood. Someone wanted me gone. And they were willing to burn everything down to make it happen. Can you feel the danger closing in? Because this is where everything explodes. Drop a comment if your heart is racing and hit that subscribe button because what happens next will leave you breathless. The safe room was steel and concrete buried beneath the mansion. Matteo sat in the corner, eyes wide with fear, his night nurse hovering uselessly nearby. I ran to him, pulled him into my arms. It's okay, baby. It's okay. We're safe here. But he wasn't okay. His breathing came too fast, too shallow. His lips had a blue tinge I recognized from my nursing training. His heart. How long has he been like this? I snapped at the nurse. She blinked, confused. Like what? His breathing. His color. How long? I don't know. Maybe 10 minutes? Since the alarms started. 10 minutes. 10 minutes of a child in cardiac distress and she just sat there. Rage flooded through me, but there was no time. I need his emergency medication. Now. It's upstairs in his room. Then get it. But Mr. Moretti said no one leaves until. I don't care what he said. Matteo is dying. Get the medication or I will. She ran. I laid Matteo down flat, elevated his legs, checked his pulse. Too fast. Way too fast. His small hand gripped mine. Jenna, he whispered. I don't feel good. I know, sweetheart. Stay with me, okay? Keep looking at my eyes. The minutes crawled. His breathing got worse. The nurse didn't return. I made a decision that would haunt me forever. I scooped Matteo into my arms and ran. The safe room door required a code I didn't have. But panic makes you creative. I pounded until the guard outside opened it. Move. He needs a hospital. Now. Miss Reed, we're on lockdown. No one. Look at him. My voice turned to ice. Look at this child and tell me protocol matters more than his life. The guard's face went pale. He spoke into his radio. Boss, the kid's in trouble. Medical emergency. Luca's voice crackled back. How bad? Bad. 3 minutes later, we were in an SUV surrounded by armed guards, racing toward the nearest hospital. Luca sat across from me, holding Matteo's other hand, face carved from stone. But his eyes betrayed him. Pure terror. We screeched into the emergency bay. I carried Matteo through the doors, screaming for help. A doctor rushed over, took one look, started barking orders. Then a nurse checked the computer. Her face changed. I'm sorry. We can't treat him here. What? Luca's voice could have shattered glass. She stepped back, genuinely frightened. The board issued a directive. No one with the Moretti name. It's hospital policy. Liability issues. The world tilted sideways. They were refusing a dying child because of his last name. Because of fear. Because monsters in suits decided paperwork mattered more than an 8-year-old boy fighting for breath. Luca lunged forward. 2 guards had to hold him back. His rage filled the entire emergency room. I'll burn this place to the ground. I'll destroy every person on your board. I'll... Stop. My voice cut through his threats. Just stop. I turned to the doctor, still holding Matteo, who was fading in my arms. My name is Jenna Reed. I'm a licensed nursing student. This is my patient. No last name. No connections. Just a little boy who needs help. I looked him dead in the eye. Are you really going to let him die in your lobby? The doctor hesitated. The nurse shook her head frantically. Security was already moving toward us. And that's when the news vans pulled up outside. Someone had tipped off the media. Cameras pressed against the glass doors. Reporters shouting questions. We were trapped. Matteo was dying. And the whole world was watching. What happened next shocked everyone in that hospital. Comment below if you would have done what I did. Hit subscribe because this moment changes everything and you won't believe where it leads. I made a choice that would either save us or destroy everything. I walked straight past security, past the protesting nurse, through the emergency room doors into the treatment area. Alarms started blaring. People shouted. I didn't care. I laid Matteo on the first empty gurney I found and started working. Checked his airway. Monitored his breathing. My hands moved on autopilot. Muscle memory from hundreds of hours of training kicking in. A young resident rushed over. What are you doing? You can't be back here. Then help me or get out of my way. I rattled off Matteo's symptoms, his medical history, his medications. This child has a congenital heart defect and he's in acute distress. He needs oxygen, an EKG, and a cardiology consult. Now. The resident looked at Matteo, then at me, then at the chaos erupting around us. He made his choice. Get me a pediatric oxygen mask and Starden 4 line. The next 20 minutes blurred together. More doctors arrived. Equipment appeared. They tried to make me leave, but I refused, cited every regulation I'd memorized in nursing school, threatened to tell those cameras outside that they let a child die while I begged for help. Luca stood just outside the treatment room, surrounded by guards and hospital administrators screaming about lawsuits and policies. But his eyes never left his son. I saw him mouth something. Looked like please. Matteo's heart rhythm stabilized. Color returned to his lips. His breathing steadied. The cardiologist, an older woman with kind eyes, finally nodded. He's stable. Going to be okay. My legs gave out. I caught myself on the gurney, all the adrenaline draining at once. Matteo's small hand found mine. You saved me, he whispered. Like a superhero. Tears I'd been holding back finally fell. Not a superhero, baby. Just someone who loves you. Behind me, I heard the attending physician talking to administration. The resident who helped me stood firm, refusing to back down, insisting he made the right call. Hospital lawyers were already on their way. But outside, through the windows, those cameras had captured everything. By morning, the footage would be everywhere. The girl who defied a hospital to save the Mafia boss's son. The child denied care because of his name. The system that valued fear over life. We'd become a story. The kind that forces people to choose sides. And I just made enemies of people far more powerful than Vincent Calabrese. Luca appeared beside me once they moved Matteo to a private room. His hand touched my shoulder, and when I turned, I saw something in his eyes that terrified me more than any threat. Gratitude, admiration, and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. We need to talk, he said quietly. About everything. But we never got that chance. Because when we returned to the estate 3 hours later, it was on fire. Not the whole mansion. Just the east wing. The wing where my room was located. Where all my belongings had been. The message couldn't have been clearer. And standing in the driveway, watching the flames with a slight smile, was Vincent Calabrese. Your heart should be pounding right now because mine was about to explode. Comment if you saw that twist coming and subscribe because what Luca does next will blow your mind. The war has officially started. Luca moved so fast I barely saw it. 1 second Vincent was standing there, smug smile still on his face. The next, Luca had him by the throat against the side of a car. You burned my house. Vincent didn't even look scared. Actually smiled wider through the chokehold. Your father would be ashamed. Look at you. Weak over some girl and a crippled boy who should have died years ago. The sound of bone hitting metal echoed across the driveway. Luca's fist connected with Vincent's jaw once, twice, 3 times. Guards rushed forward but froze when Luca raised his other hand. He wanted to kill him. I could see it. The rage, the betrayal, the years of tension finally erupting. Luca, stop. Matteo's voice, small and terrified from the car window. Please don't hurt him, Dad. Please. And just like that, the violence drained from Luca's body. He released Vincent, who crumpled to the ground, blood streaming from his nose. You're done. Luca's voice was deadly calm. Get off my property. If I see you again, Matteo won't be here to save you. Vincent stood slowly, that horrible smile never fading. You think it's just me? He laughed, spitting blood. Half your organization thinks you've gone soft. The Moretti name used to mean something. Fear. Power. Now it means bedtime stories and finger painting. He looked directly at me. She's made you weak, Luca. And weak men don't survive in our world. 2 guards dragged Vincent away. Fire trucks arrived, sirens screaming. Staff rushed around trying to salvage what they could. But Luca just stood there, staring at the flames consuming part of his empire. Get Matteo inside the south wing, he said quietly. I'll handle this. But as I turned to go, his hand caught my wrist. Gentle, almost desperate. Don't leave. His voice cracked. The estate. Don't leave me. The vulnerability in those 4 words shattered something inside me. This powerful, dangerous man was begging. Not ordering. Begging. I won't, I whispered. He pulled me closer, right there in front of everyone, and pressed his forehead to mine. I can't do this without you. Any of it. His eyes opened, inches from mine. I'm falling for you, Jenna. And it's the most dangerous thing I've ever done. My breath caught. This was wrong on every level. He was my employer. A criminal. A man whose world was violence and secrets. And I was falling too, despite every warning screaming in my head. The moment shattered when another explosion rocked the east wing. We jerked apart. More fire. More smoke. That wasn't an accident. One of the fire chiefs ran over. That was a secondary device. Someone wanted to make sure it all burned. Luca's phone rang. He answered, face going darker with every second. When he hung up, the man I'd seen glimpses of was gone. Only the mob boss remained. That was my contact at the port. 3 of my shipments were just seized. My accounts are frozen. And the families I do business with all received anonymous tips that I'm cooperating with federal investigators. Someone's orchestrating this, I said. Not someone. Everyone. He looked at me, and I saw the truth he'd been hiding. Vincent wasn't acting alone. This is a coup. They're using you as an excuse to take everything I built. Matteo appeared in the doorway, his nurse right behind him. Dad, are we okay? Luca's mask slipped back into place. We're fine, son. Just some grown-up problems. But Matteo was too smart for that. He looked at the fire, at the armed guards, at his father's clenched fists. His eyes filled with tears. This is because of me, isn't it? Because I'm broken. Because taking care of me makes you weak. My heart shattered. No, baby, no. But Luca knelt down, pulled his son close, and said something that changed everything. You are the only thing I've ever done right. Every mistake I've made, every sin I carry, you're the reason I want to be better. His voice shook. And Jenna is the person showing me how. Father and son held each other while an empire crumbled around them. And I realized this was bigger than a job, bigger than attraction, bigger than any choice I thought I was making. These two had become my family. And families don't run when things get hard. Luca's second phone rang. The secure one. He answered, listened, and his face went completely blank. They have my mother. His grandmother. They're holding her until I step down and turn over control of the organization. The woman who raised him after his father died. Who Matteo visited every Sunday. The last piece of Luca's humanity besides his son. He looked at me with eyes full of anguish and rage and impossible choices. I have to go. Alone. It's the only way to keep you and Matteo safe. Or it's a trap designed to kill you and leave them with nothing. Probably. A ghost of a smile. But she's my mother, Jenna. What would you have done for yours? And there it was. The choice. Let him walk into certain death alone. Or step into the darkness beside him and risk everything. Are you screaming at your screen right now? Because the choice Jenna makes next will determine if this family survives or falls apart forever. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button because what's coming is going to leave you absolutely speechless. I grabbed his arm before he could walk away. You're not going alone. Jenna, this isn't your fight. Yes, it is. I stepped closer, holding his gaze. You said I made you want to be better. So be better. Stop fighting like the man they expect you to be. Fight like the father Matteo needs you to be. Something shifted in his eyes. What are you saying? Use the one weapon they're not expecting. I took a breath. The truth. 2 hours later, we walked into the warehouse where they were holding Luca's mother. But we weren't alone, and we weren't armed. We brought something far more powerful. We brought the media. Every camera that had filmed us at the hospital. Every reporter who'd turned our story into a national conversation. They followed us in, broadcasting live, as Luca Moretti did the unthinkable. He told the truth. My name is Luca Moretti. I've spent 20 years building an empire on fear. I've hurt people, broken laws, justified it all as family business, as tradition, as survival. His voice echoed through the warehouse. But my son taught me something. Fear isn't strength. It's a prison. And I'm done living in it. The men holding his mother, Vincent among them, stood frozen. You couldn't shoot someone on live television in front of 50 cameras. Couldn't make threats. Couldn't do anything but watch their power evaporate in real time. Luca continued. I'm dismantling every illegal operation I control. Cooperating fully with federal investigators. And I'm using every dollar I have left to build something that matters. Vincent laughed. But it sounded hollow. You're destroying everything your father built. Good. Luca's voice was steel. My father built a legacy of violence. I'm building one of hope. 2 FBI agents stepped forward from the crowd. We'd contacted them before arriving, offered full cooperation in exchange for immunity and protection. Within minutes, Vincent and the others were in handcuffs. Luca's mother was free. And the Moretti Empire, as everyone knew it, died on camera. The next 6 months were chaos. Trials. Testimonies. Media storms. Luca gave up everything. The shipping companies that laundered money. The warehouses hiding illegal operations. The network of corruption that spanned decades. He kept only 2 things. The mansion, because Matteo loved the gardens. And me, because somewhere in the wreckage, we'd become essential to each other. 1 year later, I stood in the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Matteo Moretti Center for Children with Special Needs. 20 floors of medical care, therapy, education, and support. Completely free. Funded by what remained of the Moretti fortune. Matteo, now 9 and stronger after successful heart surgery, cut the ribbon himself. His smile could have powered the entire building. Luca stood beside me, hand finding mine naturally now. No more hiding. No more secrets. Just a man rebuilding his life one honest choice at a time. He'd proposed 3 weeks ago. Nothing fancy. Just the 3 of us in the garden. Matteo holding the ring box, both of them asking if I'd stay forever. I said yes before they finished the question. Because this was never about money or power or danger. It was about a little boy who needed love, a broken man who needed redemption, and a woman who'd lost everything and found a family in the last place she expected. Your past doesn't define you. The choices you make today do. Luca whispered that to me once, and I think about it every time someone asks how I ended up here. I got fired for feeding a hungry child. The next day, a Mafia boss changed my life. But the real story is how a little boy's laugh changed all of us. Matteo tugged my hand. Jenna, come see. They put my painting in the lobby. I let him pull me forward, Luca following close behind, his hand on my back. Protective. Gentle. Home. The painting showed 3 stick figures holding hands under a sky full of clouds shaped like dragons. At the bottom, in Matteo's careful handwriting, my family. Not the family anyone expected, but the one we fought for. The one we chose. The one we became when we stopped running from the truth and started living it. If this story moved you, if you believe in second chances and the power of love to transform even the darkest places, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to change your story. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest, because your words mean everything to this channel. And subscribe, because every day we bring you stories about real people facing impossible choices and finding the courage to choose love over fear, hope over despair, redemption over regret. Thank you for being part of this journey. For believing that broken people can heal, that families come in unexpected forms, and that sometimes the person who saves you is the one you thought you were saving. This is Jenna's story. But maybe it's yours too. Maybe you're standing at your own crossroads, wondering if caring too much will cost you everything. I'm here to tell you it might. But what you gain will be worth more than anything you lose. 5 years later, Matteo stood on stage at his middle school graduation, healthier than any doctor predicted he'd ever be. His speech about never giving up brought the entire auditorium to tears. In the front row, I held Luca's hand on one side and cradled our 2-year-old daughter Sofia on the other. Luca Moretti, once feared across the eastern seaboard, now spent his days running the largest network of special needs centers in the country. His past would never disappear completely. Some people still whispered, still judged, still couldn't see past the name. But Matteo saw a father who read bedtime stories and never missed a therapy appointment. Sofia saw a daddy who made pancakes every Sunday. And I saw the man who chose love over legacy, family over fear, redemption over reputation. That afternoon, we released white balloons in the garden. One for Luca's mother, who lived long enough to dance at our wedding. One for my mom, who I wished could have met the family I found. And one for the woman I used to be, who got fired for caring too much and discovered that sometimes caring too much is exactly enough. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that made it everything. See you in the next story. Until then, choose kindness, choose courage, choose love, always choose love.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.